Hello, this is David Emerson. I'm going to talk to you today about some network vulnerabilities. This content was originally provided by Tim Warner from the Pluralsight course for network security, studying for CompTIA Network Plus. Okay, so when we're identifying network vulnerabilities, we first need to understand risk, and that's the quantification of what could be lost in the event of an incident. And then there's also a threat, which is an entity that will use vulnerabilities to steal, damage, or otherwise cause a loss of data. Alright, the first and most prevalent network vulnerability is wireless threats. The first of which is an evil twin or a man in the middle attack. And that's when somebody will set up a rogue access point, and that's an access point that's installed without authorization from the company. And what this does is a workstation will spoof a legitimate corporate SSID or a service set identifier and then act as an access point. And then other people will connect to it, and then the person operating the rogue access point can use tools such as Kali Linux tools to collect traffic intended for commercial websites, social media passwords, and banking info. There are countermeasures to protect against this, and that's intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems, or IDS and IPS. Also, by using extensible authentication protocol, or EAP, to connect to the Wi-Fi is another way to counteract this threat. And that's basically just requiring a username and password to connect to the network. The IDS and IPS can also alert to the presence of rogue APs. MAC filtering is not as effective in a large business because there's just too many Macs to manage, and also Macs can be spoofed. There's a couple other network vulnerabilities I'm going to talk about. That's war driving and war chalking. War driving is driving around with a powerful antenna just looking for open hotspots, and it's based on an older technique of war dialing. War chalking is doing the same thing but traveling around on foot and actually marking nodes in the area using these symbols. This is kind of an older threat, it's not as prevalent today. Nowadays, it's just too easy to use a search engine. Optimum, for example, is a website you can use to find open hotspots, and most businesses offer them anyways. Open wireless local area networks, or WLANs, can be exploited to gather information on other nodes connected, or simply just to use free internet. Another vulnerability that everyone needs to be aware of is Bluetooth. And Bluetooth is a very short range wireless access protocol. And there's two threats when it comes to Bluetooth. There's bluejacking, which is sending unsolicited messages to Bluetooth enabled devices that are nearby. And this is more of a nuisance than a real threat because the attacker isn't actually stealing or modifying data. This is a technique to send spam to mobile devices. And then there's blue snarfing. Now, this actually takes advantage of vulnerabilities in the protocol by using a hacking tool to discover surrounding devices' MAC addresses. Once the attacker has your MAC, he or she can manipulate, corrupt, or steal data from your Bluetooth enabled device. There are two major weaknesses in wireless networks, and those are WEP, or Wired Equivalent Protocol, and WPS, which is Wi-Fi Protected Setup. WEP, or WEP, is easy to crack, and WPS uses a PIN, which is also easy to crack using a brute force attack. The best option when using wireless is to use WPA2, which is Wi-Fi Protected Access with a pre-shared key and advanced encryption standard. There are several precautionary measures you can take to protect your system. The first is to disable and even uninstall unused services on your machine. They can be used to gain remote access into a system. Next, you'll want to keep your operating system up to date with the latest security patches. You'll also want to configure any outward facing devices for stealth mode so they don't respond to port scanning tools. Finally, you'll want to avoid unsecure protocols, and those include protocols that transmit in clear text such as HTTP, FTP, and TFTP.